Hi, it's Richie. Welcome to part 2 of this episode of Funding Focus. Without further ado, let's get back to it with Tricia and Hannah.
There's a lot of discussion at the moment about commuter students. There's a huge
Yes.
rise in commuter students. There are multiple ways to define what is a commuter student, but across all definitions, it's incredibly high rate now, and we know so little about commuter students as a demographic, and that's becoming more and more prominent in all the discussions. So at the moment, we're working to establish a bit of partnership analysis with an academic at one of our partner universities. Her specialism is in, or one of her special areas of interest is in transport, and particularly where it relates to commuter students and to widening participation. So the aim is that we can understand a bit more about how commuter students in particular engage with the funding that's available to them, to see if that can help us just have another bit of data, another data point, another little bit of understanding to build up that picture where at the moment there's so little. And I'm not saying it gives us the answers by any means, but it is another step to having a better understanding of what's going on.
Absolutely. And I think any kind of step in that direction is going to be helpful, isn't it? And invaluable to any university. That, you know, I mean, it certainly will be for us, because I know that at Salford it is a lot of people that do come to us, certainly at the minute, are commuter students or international students as well. We mentioned that before. Definitely being a big issue
Coming
in
back
terms
to
of
the
those
annual
costs.
report, the travel and transport's one of the highest uses. Where students withdraw their cash funding, we ask them to tell us what the purpose is, and it's self-reported. There will always be limitations to that, but it does nonetheless allow us to get a bit of an idea of the bigger picture, to see patterns and trends. So,
and they are regional, aren't they, Hannah? The different regions return different sorts of spend,
and different types of city. It's very interesting to dig around in that. And the travel and transport, we know students have travel and transport costs, but when students are, rather than selecting one of the drop-down options, some of them choose to write in the box, open text box, to tell us a bit more about why they're using those funds. And when we begin to analyse that data, and very little of it made it into the annual report, small amount giving some overviews on that, but it tells us what are the transport costs, what's going on here. So car fuel and parking, parking, as you'll be well aware, is a phenomenal cost for students, if that's how they have to get to campus, by car. Or they're commuting to university by train, or emergency repairs to the car. And if this is somebody who is a student with caring responsibilities, or a parent, and their only method of transport is their car, and it breaks down, are they going to be trying to get to university by some other means, or are they going to spend that money and time on dealing with their other responsibilities? When the funds are very limited. So that example, travel and transport, yes, we know that's a cost for students. We know there are travel bursaries and so on, but beginning to get a bit more of a feel for where those cost sort of areas lie. And again, this is something that merits a lot more analysis.
Absolutely.
And of course, analysis of demographics, understanding, are particular types of transport cost stronger for students in a particular demographic, or are there very clear patterns between types of city, depending on the transport infrastructure that's available. Again, we're seeing small bits. There's more, but what we're seeing starts to be fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose with somewhere like Salford, and certainly Manchester as a whole, I mean, there's so many ways to get about the city as well. But I know, it's quite handy. I mean, speaking just from a general Salford point of view, really, you've got Salford Crescent at the top of the, certainly for Peel Park campus, you've got Salford Crescent just two seconds away there, and then you've got fantastic bus links.
Because aren't you part of the Andy Burnham B network? Doesn't that come out to Salford? Yeah.
Yes, it does. Absolutely, 100%. And it's just really, really accessible, for students. And obviously, I mean, credit to, the B network, for example. I mean, we don't publicise other good bus companies are available as well, bus routes.
Yeah, but aren't all the bus companies under the umbrella of the B network?
They are, but they do, make certainly fares affordable. For many different people. But even
I'm a big fan of Andy Burnham, not to be political, but I think what Greater Manchester is doing in some of those areas is really impressive.
Yeah,
and in some cities, important. It's not just about the costs of public transport. It's about whether the public transport goes from where you live to where you study at the times when you need to be in those places.
Yeah.
The big conurbation like Salford and Manchester, I mean, you're quite lucky, aren't you? Because there's enough people to warrant.
Absolutely. I mean, where I used to work, which was basically in the middle of nowhere, I mean, even for me, because parking was always an issue, but public transport wasn't an option because the bus was every 2 hours.
Wow. Where was that? Where were you?
Ormskirk.
Oh, right. I know. I know exactly which institution you were working at.
Yeah. And, from where I lived to certainly where I worked at the time, it was a taxi. And it was, you're spending £22 a day, and you're thinking, I can't afford this as a member of staff. What about students who are probably living round by where I would live as well?
This is again where the contextual information is really helpful, because if you're asking what students are spending their money on and they're telling you they're spending it on taxis, there's an immediate automatic response of, why are students wasting their money on taxis? They should be taking the bus. But when you have the contextual information, is there a bus? Well, no. Then what do? That begins to help us understand a bit more about that.
I think that thing that Hannah does is that we have the sector-wide data that you can cut by types of students across the sector. But then there's the institutional data. So it's just about you and your students and cut in whatever way is helpful to you.
Absolutely.
But you have the context of the national data too.
And I've just been signing off a report that we're sending to one of our partners, regular report that we do for them. And we show them what each fund is doing in terms of engagement levels, number of students, how much has been spent, and so on. But we can also split it by school.
Oh, wow.
So because they've given us the data on school of each student, and so we can then return that data. We can say, here is the engagement and usage by school for this particular subset of your funding, for example, and that helps them to see. So whereas where in which school are the most students with allocated funding for this purpose, and what are the usage patterns looking like, and how do they compare?
Wow.
And that is absolutely what you're saying, Tricia. It's helping you understand your own student body and how those awards are being used.
Absolutely.
To allow you to plan ahead as well. The more you understand, the more you think, right, next year we know this is going to be available. How can we best use it?
Absolutely. I was just going to go on to as well mention about the report that you've got coming out as well, which I know you obviously a lot of what you've been talking about is going to be in that report, but certainly about how students are feeling about what support they're getting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, because that sounds really exciting?
Really, really recurrent theme throughout, students talking about having this support relieve their worries. It just reduced the stress levels knowing that funding was available to them, and that enabled them to focus on what they were actually there for, which is studying. What I found interesting as well, we know that students are increasingly having to work part-time in a paid job alongside their studies to meet their costs. Some of the comments were coming in from students who are working part-time and are unable to meet their living costs. And having to make a decision between taking on, for example, more bank shifts or going to the lectures. And then they're explaining the difference that was made by receiving this financial support. They no longer had to worry about making that choice. It just, again, it's removing one of the layers of stress and anxiety. The other thing about what it meant to them in terms of response, a lot of students told us that it was very motivating. It made them feel really encouraged. even tiny amounts sometimes, because this research was actually across a huge range of different award types. And because it was anonymized, I'm working on a data set where I'm not able to slice and dice by demographics. So, just to let you know, this is a very wide scope analysis. But a lot of them were saying, I felt absolutely motivated to refresh my my interest in my studies, to really try my best because I knew the university cared about me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I think one of the headlines in this report is hardship to hope. It is that sense of I'm feeling quite under pressure, but actually at the end of it, when the money had come in and I'd used it in ways that I needed to, I was feeling optimistic and hopeful about my future. And that sense of universities really care about whether they lose students, dropout rates, continuation rates. They care because they care about the students. They care because they want to keep that student in the student body. They also care because if they lose the student, they lose the fee income. So it's that sense of you invest this way, and we can tell you because these 4,000 students have responded to say it really makes a difference. As Hannah said, even small sums of money make a difference to feeling
if
included.
It's at the right time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of validating for student money advisors as well, and universities, institutions alike, because you want to. I mean, we don't necessarily see the aftermath. Usually, we don't usually get.
No, that's true, isn't it? You give them the money and they go away. Yes, that's absolutely true. Also,
and I think
you need to read this. Everybody in NASMA needs to read this, because this is why you do it. This is why you do it.
Tricia mentioned this hardship to hope theme that was really coming up very strongly, and it's students who had found themselves homeless. And this meant that they were able to make that change in their circumstances. It was students who, had been unexpectedly ill or faced an injury, or students who their whole life circumstances were unexpectedly turned upside down and they thought they were going to have to drop out. But the financial support meant that they were able to continue in their academic journey. And both on the practical level and also on the emotional and wider support level.
Yeah.
That student now feels able to continue, and their life can change.
And I know within a university, if you're trying to make the case for something, you need two things. You need data and you need story. You need the data for the CFO and the COO because they need evidence. They need to know this is going to work. But you also need the story that tells the individual vignette case studies that says this makes a big difference. The student who hadn't eaten for a week, somebody who was homeless. Because those are very powerful emotional hooks that say this is why you should do it.
Tells us, the cost of getting to their placement was so prohibitive that they wouldn't have been able to continue that course without the support from the university. You need to be able to see that, hear that story.
Absolutely, and that's. I mean, we see it in hardship fund applications. Obviously, we get the kind of the meat and the bones, if you like, of everything. But you get the problem, you don't get the after effects of the solution that you've provided, and
no, you don't hear what happens.
Exactly, and I think
that's really interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that, so I really think this will make you feel we make a difference. This is making a difference to the lives of the students.
And there's more than that. It's not just those absolute hardship cases. It's also funds, whether they are set aside for specific purposes. One of the things that can be done with the credit funds is being used for memberships and societies. But also students choose to
interview
use those
outfits.
Funds. Yeah,
things to get you ready to get a job. Seriously, that's what we're using for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they feel when they're able to use funds that have been given to them to join societies, to have memberships to things they wouldn't otherwise been able to do. There are 2 layers of benefit coming out in the comments that I've been reading through. One is that they are able to feel a sense of belonging, and we know how important belonging is for continuation. Feel that they're able to participate on an even playing field with their peers who have the money to be able to do these additional activities.
Yeah.
Now, I also am able to be part of this group. I feel like I belong. I've got opportunities opened to me that otherwise I would never have been able to afford. So that aspect as well. It's not the hardship as such. It's that next layer up. Feeling that you're part of this, feeling that you're able to access opportunities, take things a little bit further, meet people, make friends, especially again with commuter students, people with caring responsibilities, people from more disadvantaged backgrounds. There can be a lot of difficulty in feeling like you belong, getting to know people. And that type of funding and that type of use of financial resources available can actually, again, make quite a significant difference to how students feel able to continue to be part of a community that enables their ongoing learning.
Absolutely. 100%. I think that's a good place to leave it. I think
Can I say one thing?
Oh, go on.
Just worth touching on, because we haven't mentioned it, and I think it's important. And from the Salford perspective, I know you know about this, which is the portal that students go on to access their cash or to access their credit or whatever. Is something that is developed in relationship with the institution. It has a name that suits the institution. When the student goes to it, it feels like it's talking to its own university, not the JS group. So it's presented as a Salford package or whatever. And on that, there is also content for students, some of which is written by Lynn Condell, who was the former chair of NASMA. So some of it is about student finance, written by an expert. Some of it's about careers, some of it's about learning skills. So there's content there that's useful for students. So when they go to access their funding, there's a raft of other elements that's available to students, which is part of the package. And I think the student feels trust because it's all of the branding, all of the way it looks to the student will look like Salford. And they will feel like this is my institution supporting me, because that's exactly what it is.
Yes, it is.
So the JS group is never visible to the student. The relationship is with the university, not with the JS group. But the JS group is the platform, and it's making sure that it works and does all the things in the right way at the right time.
And while we're talking about that aspect, Tricia, one of the other things that I found in the feedback is they find it easy to use. I was talking to one of the providers, and they were saying, it's great. It's a modern system. It feels like a modern system. The way that students expect to engage with their money, it maps onto that. They feel comfortable using it, and and that's what students are telling us.
So now we'll let you finish. Well, because it just struck me that we hadn't talked about it, and I know from a student and an institution perspective, it's an important part of the package.
It is, and you're right, absolutely, because we, have our Salford, we call it the Inspire portal.
Inspire, yeah.
Not to be too, we use Aspire, but it's Inspire, because that's what we want to try and do, and that's kind of a big part of what, talking about credit funds. We have the Inspire scheme, which is the £150 that we give to students each academic year, unless they repeat a year. But each academic year, we will give them 150 quid and there is an uplift to that as well if they are from a specific demographic as well, or domicile demographic. And it's brilliant to see that, it's easy for the student to access certain things, certain course materials, because you get a lot of, certainly we have a fashion design course, for example, and
students talked in the feedback about the cost of materials. They're saying
it's through the roof.
It's so expensive to actually do this.
But it's part of the course that they've got to do, like a final project and a final kind of catalogue of different outfits for their course. And we get it a lot through our hardship fund applications, but also they're able to use part of their Inspire scheme, and that's we deliver that through Aspire. So there you go.
There are universities who actually deliver a final project fund through that portal specifically.
Yeah.
And mostly it's the arts, the design, the media type courses.
Absolutely.
That cost is significant to the student.
So I'm sold. So where do I sign up now?
Good man. You already have signed up. Tell your friends.
If people are interested, where can they go?
Well, the JS Group website is very easily found, which will give you a very quick opportunity to talk to one of our colleagues, because people are very happy to come out and give a demonstration, talk about what it might mean for you as an institution. So I think Google JS Group, it will take you straight to the website, and to take it from there. You can contact me, Tricia King. You can contact Hannah Moralee at the JS Group. We'd be delighted to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Fabulous.
It's been a delight, Richard.
Yes.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed that conversation.
Thank you so much for joining. This might be a two-parter, I think.
You mean we didn't stop talking? Is that what you're saying?
This is what you get when you invite two people who just love to talk.
But do you know
care
what?
about the subject.
Well, it is, absolutely.
But this is the thing, and this certainly came across in a lot of what you were saying, and I think the passion, because that's key, and I think we don't get involved in this type of arena if we're not passionate about it.
We don't do it for the money, do we?
Well, no. And we do it to give out the money, but we don't.
Yeah, I mean, university's never going to make you rich, but it's like a vocation. And honestly, because of my own experience, my life transformed because I got a university degree, and I went on to do the things I've done in my life because I got a university degree. I have 3 children. I have 4 very soon, by the end of next week, 6 grandchildren. And I can see the trajectory of my family, that social mobility that goes from first in family, lone parent, Irish immigrant community, right the way through to my 3 children getting great university degrees and doing really good professional university work that I'm enormously proud of. And then their children, so that shift, I'm the generational shift, but it affects all the generations coming after me. I want that for everybody who wants it for themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's a good quote there. I like that. That was a strong quote.
Well, I have talked about this before once or twice, but because you said you have to be motivated and passionate in this world.
Yes.
And this, there is nothing that will transform your life more than education. And in the world that we live in right now, misinformation, people not able to make judgments about what they're reading and seeing. Universities are the answer to some of what we're seeing right now, and yet they are so embattled, so in trouble. And I really care, because I think they are vehicles of social transformation.
100%, definitely. Thank you so much, guys. That's
marvellous. We all feel a bit
brilliant.
better, don't we?
Yeah.